Exploiting a directory traversal. Before we continue exploiting the application, let's recap what we've discovered so far. We've identified a directory traversal vulnerability in a Java application using Spring and running on a Windows server. Perhaps we can use the directory traversal to access the application's configuration files. According to the documentation, Spring applications load properties from application.properties files in 4 locations: a config subdirectory of the current directory, a class path config package, and the class path root. In Java, class path refers to a location that contains dependencies outside of the standard Java files. This could be located anywhere on the server, so let's start with our focus on the first 2 locations. wfuzz can fuzz multiple payloads, which means we can make 2 small word lists. One will contain path traversal strings. In the previous section, 7 instances of .. were enough to traverse back to the root of the C drive. With that in mind, let's create paths.txt with a list of traversal strings, starting with 1 .. and building up to a total of 7. Next, let's build a list of file names. Since the file could be in the current directory or in a config subdirectory, we'll add config to our new file. When we run wfuzz, it will combine the contents of the 2 files together, matching each payload in the first file with each payload in the second file. In other words, because paths.txt has 7 payloads and files.txt has 4, wfuzz should send 28 requests. Let's try running wfuzz with our word lists. We need to specify them in order of use, so we'll set -w paths.txt and then -w files.txt. We'll also set hh0 to filter out any empty responses. Finally, we'll add our URL in the query string, marking 2 places to fuzz. wfuzz found 1 response with a non-zero response size. Let's use curl with the combined payload to get the full response. Nice! Our directory traversal attack worked, and we now have access to the application.properties file. Based on our previous Nmap scans, the application's database isn't externally accessible. Perhaps we can use the admin portal key value on the login page we found earlier. Let's return to our browser and go to login. We'll change the login method to API key, enter the value from application.properties in the API key field, and click Login. Excellent. We've successfully logged in to the admin section. Now that we have access to another section of the web application, we'll need to enumerate any new pages and functionality. The admin page will display the contents of local.txt. We can submit this value on the labs page to gain credit for completing the authentication bypass portion of this challenge machine. In the next learning unit, we will focus on discovering and exploiting a vulnerability in the authenticated section of the application to obtain remote code execution.